Hi there, my name is Jasmin. I'm also known as kuschelirmel all over the internet, and my day job is being an engineer. And when I'm not engineering, I'm usually found in front of the computer and trying to fiddle with Photoshop or Premiere or After Effects. And I really like to share my tips and tricks with you. If you would like to take a closer look at what I do, you can also find me on my website, artofkuschelirmel.de, my DeviantArt page, Kuschelirmel and Kuschelirmel Stock, as well as on Instagram, also known as Kuschelirmel. Today we are going to take a look at this image I did. I recorded the whole process of going from what you just saw to this colored, or well, rather emo version. It's not a tutorial. Today we are doing a walkthrough, which means that the image will be shown to you from start to finish, but on the flip side there will not be too many details. So if you have any questions, please leave me a comment. Before I start with the actual manipping, I want to create a new document, and to do this in this case I'm going to do Ctrl A to select the whole canvas and Ctrl C to copy it, and then I'm going into File, New, and then you can see that your clipboard dimensions are already in there and that you can use the same dimensions as with the original stock. Then I put it over and rename it to the stock provider's name so I don't get confused later. I do this extra step to get rid of any EXIF data. EXIF data is file data embedded in the file that lets you know, for example, who the creator is, what the model of the camera was that the picture was taken with, when it was taken, stuff like that. So I want to get rid of this because it has nothing to do with my manip. Then the next step for me is to separate the subject from the background. So I'm going to go to Select, Subject, and see if it works already to get a decent selection. And as you can see, it's quite decent already. So I'm just using the quick selection tool to add some and subtract some things that I need in addition or want to get rid of, like so, just to get a rough selection, a rough separation. Duplicate the layer, and with the selection active, just click on the new layer mask button. Now I'm trying to figure out if I want an Instagram aspect ratio, but I'm deciding against it after all, because the 2:3 that is already there is a classic print ratio, and cropping to the 4:5 is quite easy. So now I have some things pre-selected, and I'm on the wrong image here. I'm taking this crack and I want to put it underneath her layer-wise so that it can affect the background and she can sit on top. So now I'm putting it in between and checking to see if I more or less like the look. When I know that I do, I again go to Select Subject and see what in this case will be selected. And I can see that in the end, at the top, there are some things missing. So this time I'm going to take the lasso tool and just add a bit of that stuff that is missing. For me, this Select Subject, as good as it can be, often does not meet my requirements. But I think, especially if you need a quick first selection and to be able to just drop the stuff together and to figure out how it fits together, I think this is a very good first step. I end up putting or creating a smart object from the crack layer. I really like the fact that in a smart object, for one, if you put it in a smart object, you get rid of the extra layer mask. It makes your layer palette look kind of clean, and you can scale it down. And if you figure that later you need to scale it back up again a bit, you will not lose any quality because the original image and all the pixels are still there. So when I'm in this composing phase, I really like to do this. Now you can see me also experimentally scaling it up, which will affect the quality. But if I figure that I want to scale it up, I would probably go and scale everything else down and recrop or resize the rest of the image to make it fit. Depends a bit on the stock and depends on how big it is, because if it's really tiny and you don't see it after all, then who cares? So now I'm bringing in the first sky layer, again renaming it. I'm speeding up, starting to speed up the video footage now, because the further down you go, the more, the slower I get basically. So I'm speeding it up a bit. Now it's twice what it really was. I'm using the transform command, Control-T, free transform, to transform it into place. And again here I'm scaling it up a bit because for clouds I don't think that you really see much of a difference. Putting the main layer mask on the group so that I can mask out the front where she's sitting on, and then I'm using a gradient mask on the sky layer itself to make the transition smooth. Now I'm using the patch tool on the background to get rid of some of those branches, because I really don't want anything green on that scene. And apart from that, it's only a small tiny bit, so it doesn't really help. It just looks strange. So now I'm using a brush tool, and these brushes that I'm using, they're my normal Photomanip brushes. You can download them from DeviantArt or my website. And basically I always have the soft one, this one, or the hard one, and then I also adjust the hardness or the size, and that's more or less it. I use those brushes for painting on masks like you see here. You know, with black you hide and with white you reveal, and anything in between will be the shade of opacity that you're basically using as your gray. That's the best way to describe it, I guess. Now I'm doing some refinements here, and I'm also going to take out the green stuff here with the patch tool again. Now I'm going to bring in the second sky layer, because at the moment it's very pronounced and very, the dynamic with the vertical lines, I think it works quite well, but it's not 100% what I was looking for. So I'm going and trying different blend modes and actually settling for on normal and clip to the layer below. You can clip something by holding down the Alt key in between the two layers, and then you can clip the top one to the bottom one, and thereby using the bottom one's mask also for the top one. This is quite handy sometimes. Now you can see that I'm going in and trying to refine a bit the edges of the crack, and here I'm realizing that the way the girl was cut out by the selection, by the select subject tool, was really not the way I would have liked it. So I'm going in with the pen tool, and when you use the pen tool, you click and you drag, then it makes those handles appear, and when you want just a point, then you just click and let go immediately. Then you can have a sharp point, sharp edge. And as they say, practice makes perfect. So when you do this the first time, it will feel super awkward. But now I think it's the fastest way for me to cut out anything. And here you can see I'm staying on the inside of the hair because I don't want all those tiny strands in. I'm now choosing just a few bigger ones to cut out because I don't want to be... If you try to put each and every tiny strand in the past, then you're going to go crazy and it will still look really shitty because hair is flowy and it has some opacity, or well, because it's where it bunches, it's basically see-through, and where it doesn't bunch together, you can more or less see through some of those strands. So it's not the best idea to try and do hair only by pen tool. Why I'm here keeping some of the strands is mostly because I want to use them as guides when I start painting in some more hair, so that the flow is in the correct direction. Another thing worth noting with the pen tool in the newer versions of Photoshop is that if you go to the options bar at the top and locate the gear symbol, you can actually change the color of the lines and the thickness of the lines. So if you have a background that is mostly light blue, you don't have to have it in light blue. You can have something that really stands out, and it will make your life much easier. You can see that I'm always zooming out again in between, so I can see what I'm doing on the overall scale. Now I'm painting in some hair behind her, and also later a few strands on top of her. But mostly I start by painting behind her because I want to keep the flow as it was on the main hair strands. And as soon as I see that those hard edges are really distracting, I will go in to the layer mask that is on her. So she now has a vector mask with the pen tool layer. And in between the vector mask and the normal layer thumbnail, you can see a white layer mask, and there you can also use this to get rid of some things that you don't really like. By the way, I'm using also here my standard brushes, and my hairbrush is basically just a brush comprised of a lot of dots. So you can paint more than one strand at a time and make it look a bit more realistic. And then I go in with some finer hair strands, and as soon as I see that I've overdone it or that I need to get rid of something, I will just use the eraser. It takes a bit of practice painting hair, but I think if you have if you have a girl with black hair like this, and you only need to go dark black in the background and then maybe some light strands on the top, it would be much, much easier. Here now you can see that I'm painting on the mask and getting rid of some of those edges. I should probably also mention that I'm using a Wacom tablet. If you want to do this with a mouse, it's going to be a real pain on your wrist. Even if only for health reasons, get a cheap tablet, get anything. You don't need a Wacom if you are just starting out and have no clue if you really want to use it that much. Don't need to spend all that money. Get something with less pressure sensitivity just to get you started. That will be completely fine. And if you then at some point see that a Wacom, or that you really use that and that you can benefit from the pressure sensitivity, you can still get, or maybe get for Christmas or something, the Wacom. Now I'm moving on to curves. I'm putting a curves adjustment on the top and pulling down in the middle and on the right side to make it darker, and pulling up on the left side where the blacks are. This will make the blacks not completely black but wash them out, sort of. which I think for this kind of image gives a very good look. I duplicated that one and put the second curves copy with some adjustments, minor adjustments, with a mask, so that it will work as a vignette and only darken the edges. Now we're on to the selective color adjustment, and for this I'm selecting only the violin and masking it. The reason is the violin mostly has reds in it, so if you change the channel at the top to red, you will catch, or you will have a chance to change the color to a degree. But since also your skin color always has some reds in, it will look very off if you really do it without any masking. So for now, just to see what I'm doing, I'm masking it a bit so that I can see which color I like, and going through all the colors to see which color even has an effect. Because if, for example, there was no blue in it, and then you can push the sliders around as far as you like and there will be no real change. And on the other hand, if you change the neutral white or black colors, for lack of a better word, you will get color tinges where there's just black or gray, and this you can very much see in the areas that I'm masking out now. So if you keep it for the whole layer, it might work on first glance, but if you go in and you see that something is off, or that you're put off by something, that something feels off more than it looks off, then maybe it's time to go and put on a mask. And this mask does not have to be super exact, as you can see. It's perfectly fine to just go around a bit like that. Another one of my go-to change the color mood layers is the color balance one. So you have the highlights and shadows and the neutrals in the drop down, and then you can change the values between the sliders. And here I wanted to give it a tiny bit of a bluish magenta tint, not too much, just that it's not so super desaturated, because I always feel that it doesn't look moody, it just looks kind of strange. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And again, as soon as I'm not so 100% sure what I want to do, I put stuff in groups. So now I'm back on the curves layer and I'm going into the channels. And now if you look at this, if you lift up the blues in the black areas on the left, then you get also this blue tinge in this washed out areas that we talked about earlier. You can do this with any of the colors, and it will give different effects. It will also give different effects if you do it on the right side, or if you push it to the right or to left instead of up or down. It's well worth experimenting with, because as you can see, just those few color corrections and stacking them maybe in a different order. So I decided the selective color goes below everything else, and when I do the blues in the curves themselves, then I don't need the color balance layer anymore. So just picking and going through that can change a lot the mood of your image. Next up, I wanted to set stuff on fire. That's my usual go-to when I'm kind of sad, which I was at the time of making this, and I know it's super emo and super cliche, but hey, I don't care. So what I'm trying to do is to get some flames into the crack, and I'm rearranging this. Worth mentioning is that the fire images I'm using, as I've told multiple times in other tutorials, I'm always using the levels to get the blacks to be really black, because as soon as you put them on screen, you will get weird shadows or light places, and yeah, that simply doesn't really work. So I'm now picking some more fire images, going through and checking which ones I want to use, leveling them out, choosing with the lasso tool the size I want. I put them in as smart objects so I can scale them back up again. And currently the plan is to just make this whole trench go ablaze, and then maybe have something a bit in the foreground as well. And yeah, what I'm doing here mostly is masking. A lot of lasso tool, a lot of using the gradient tool, and also I have here a cloud brush with which I'm getting rid of some of the sparks. I use this cloud brush a lot for this kind of stuff because it gives me, it is one of those that scatter, and it does not leave a real trail, so you can easily go in and it looks natural and it doesn't look so cut off as if you're using the lasso and making a mask of it. So this is what I'm doing here, and putting this all as fire in a fire group, then choosing yet another one. I mean, for me this is kind of super relaxing and I can do this for hours. Not sure if I should. I know that this is the last one I'm going to put here, so it's not worth really speeding this up. Or maybe it is. No. Yeah. Testing a bit what I want and where I want it, and if duplicating it makes sense, and going back and going in, and then finally deciding that no, that's a bit too much, a bit overkill. Not that the way it is an overkill already, but yeah. Sometimes you just want to set stuff on fire. But what I'm also realizing here, that now that I'm zoomed out, is that now it has something on the right side and it needs something, another element to balance. I want something in the back, some tree or something, but this is way too much. So I'm going through all the trees that I have collected and trying to find something that makes a bit more sense. I absolutely love these amber colored trees, and I thought when I saw them, okay, maybe it will work fine with the fire. And to some extent it does, but it's the way it has to be behind her is way too symmetrical, and I did not want something symmetrical. I was just not in the mood for something like that. So I was trying to go through some different blend modes, which is always a good idea, scaling it up, trying to see. Now I like kind of how it fits behind her, but that means that there's nothing left other than that you see. So I'm switching to a different kind of tree, and I'm putting this with the sky layer so that the front is already masked out by the group. And I'm putting a little bit of blur on it because it's a bit farther away, and also the ground starts to blur because of the camera. And now I'm trying to figure out how big do I want it, where exactly do I want it. Does it look strange right behind her, or how exactly should it be? So yeah, I'm transforming the shit out of it. And each time you transform, the smart filter will turn off. This is also, by the way, a nice thing. Since it's a smart filter, you can double click on it and you can go back and change the values. Now I saw that I really don't like the red fire because it kind of clashes, and I want the fire to be silver. And now I'm using a black and white layer, adjustment layer, on the group, but I'm figuring that somehow it looks off because there are some edges showing that shouldn't be showing. And this is probably due to the blend modes using the stuff in the group using different blend modes. So as soon as you put the group itself to screen, then it's gone. So the reason I'm using the black and white instead of just hue saturation is you can see that each color slider you can use and affect the lightness of the color, and thereby you have a lot more control when turning something into black and white. So now I'm also adding a bit of a color balance layer on top. This is because I think that pure white, pure black and white always looks kind of strange. So I try to avoid it, so my silver has a bluish tinge because yeah, everything else in the scene is kind of bluish. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And now I can also put new fire images inside of the group, and they are automatically the right color. So I'm trying out if I can figure out how to kind of incorporate the violin in the flames, if it makes sense to put it a flame, again with the levels and the stock naming, making it a smart object. And yeah, it's quite some trial and error to do these things, and the finished one, yeah, I'm not so sure. Maybe I could have done some more with it, but yeah, that's what I have now. So yeah, what I'm doing here is using the warp tool, which in the newer version of Photoshop that I'm not using here, by the way, because I had some problems with my Wacom driver, but finally they fixed it just before Christmas, thank God. So now next video will be on the actually new 2020 version with the new warp tool that I can't wait to check out, actually, because it seems to be so much cooler than before. You have more handles, you have more options, you can freeze something. That sounds super cool, and I can't wait to try. So while you can watch me fiddle some more with the fire, adding some stuff, just getting rid of some stuff, and generally trying to figure out what I want, I can already tell you that the next step is going to be to make this glow a bit here. We're going in with hard light and a soft brush and some, yeah, a bit too blue. So I'm getting rid of the blue and just using some gray color and going in and adding some glow to the flames, because if you have a light source like this and it does not kind of glow at least a little bit, and it does not shine, I don't know how else to say it, it will look like you just pasted it on, basically the way it did before. Now it's easier, I think, to do it on the real fire color than on this, and I kind of gave up a bit. What I'm doing here in basically to keep myself from thinking about it too much, I'm going in and putting some fine brush strokes on the violin and adding some highlights on the violin. Now these I like to do in a way that they are not super realistic. I like that if you kind of a bit overdo this, then you get some, I don't know how to say it best, you get this painterly look, and those outlines look like you kind of painted it, but you didn't. And yeah, that's what I'm going for. I also used one of my cloud brushes to put in some more fire and here, or more glow from the fire on the guitar, and now also on the ground. And I'm putting here a soft light layer, and I'm painting on it with black to get some shadows in, and with light with the light color from the flames, basically, to put some highlights on. Now it's not all that easy because this kind of stone, it looks very rough, and thus it will not really reflect much light, so you have to go in kind of detailed. And I'm also using this cloud brush for this to give it a bit more life. If you do this with a soft brush, it will just look kind of off. Now I'm on the background tree, and I'm adding some shadows with some gradients clipped to the normal one, and then I'm adding some light, so inner shadow set to a different angle than the global light, so that the light comes more or less from the back. And then I'm creating a layer from that so that I can mask some of it out again that I think is too much. But overall, I think this is a very effective and quick way to get some light and shadow basics on something as complicated as a tree. Here I'm putting a radial gradient behind her to make it behind her glow a bit. It's also on hard light. It's also kind of light overall. And here again, mostly some sort of vignette, trying to figure out how much of it I want. And deciding that no, I don't really like the look, and I would rather use some more curves layers to get something. But for me, it makes the fire so prominent, and it makes it super light and super bright and drowns out a lot of things. So I'm going to go back in and adjust the points until I'm more or less happy, and then until it's not so contrasty anymore. So now I'm going in with the brush tool, and you can probably not really see what I'm doing, but I'm adding some hair strands that catch the light. This is basically just, this is so relaxing when I do this. I could do it for hours, but if I do it for hours, I definitely overdo it, so need to know when to stop. So adding some more black brush strokes just to make her a bit more, that you can see before and after really quickly. And I'm going in with a bigger brush and on color dodge and trying to really get the rim lights so that she kind of glows at the edges. This is as if there were really a bright light source really behind her. You can see that in a lot of portraits, or when photographers put this light at the back and it just starts to make the people glow like this. I really like that. And I know I'm exaggerating the effect because it would not be that pronounced, but I kind of like the fact that in a manip you can do this. You can go in and add that little more extra that you can't get from real light because it just won't do it. And yeah, again, I guess you need to be a bit careful. If you overdo it too much, people's brains will go like, shit, there's something wrong with this. I can't really figure out what, but it's off-putting. I don't really like it. So yeah, this is what I really like to do. So I'm duplicating the layer here, and I think I was also, here I'm going back in and trying to fix what I don't like with the flames, or with the, in this case with the color of the violin. I want it to pop a bit more because it's the only colorful thing in the whole image. At some point I think I went back in and did the same to the fire because something was off. I will do this. I will go back and back and forth and in between as much as I need to until I like what I see. So here again with the gradients, trying to get some more glow on it and making it a bit nicer on the eyes, I guess. And again, trying to get some more darkness on the sides, but not really liking it too much. So I end up masking out most of it and putting the opacity down. But yeah, again, you don't need to do that, but that's what I do. So normally when I finish my images, I usually save them as a JPEG. Then I open up the JPEG and I go into my, sorry, that was not the right one, into my actions. And then I have some pre-defined action sets here that let me just quickly get the right sizing for the blog or Instagram with watermark, without watermark, whatever. And when I was looking, I was scrolling through what I had, and I found something that I created some time ago, and it's a rain action set. So if you like, I can share this with you. It's not really super special, but what it will do is if you create a new layer and you run it, it will just very, very quickly create a layer with rain. So if you now look into it a bit, I'm pretty sure you could tweak the settings a bit to make it different sizes of rain or whatever, but for the size that I had, it's perfectly fine. So the only thing that I didn't really like was that it's a bit light for my taste. So first thing I did was to just duplicate it. So now it's better. Let me see if that is exactly what I actually did. Yes. So they set themselves to screen. And then to get rid of this strange repeating line up here, if you can see that, it's also down here. It's probably an artifact of the filters used to create the rain, but also I think it's it looks a bit off if it's coming straight down. So what I like to do, or what I did here, was to just adjust the size to a bit bigger so I don't get any problems on the sides, and then skew it a bit, apply, and that was basically it. And then I exported this version. I just thought I'd let you know. And yes, in case you are interested, I'm thinking about bringing this out. I was always thinking about doing a few of these with different sizes and so on, but never really got around to it because for some reason I couldn't figure out which things to tweak to make it look still good. But if you like, I can share what I have. No problem at all. Please let me know in the comments, and I will probably share it on DeviantArt or my website. I hope you had a good Christmas time, if you celebrate Christmas. If you don't celebrate but had to stay at home or something because you're in a country that does celebrate, I hope you had a relaxing time. And for everybody else, I just hope it was a great week. Anyway, I hope I will be able to finish this within the next few days, so this notice will not be too outdated, but maybe it's going to be next year-ish. I don't know yet. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have learned a thing or two. If you have any comments, questions, anything you would like to see in more detail, because I'm flying over a lot of these things really, really quickly. So if you would like a deep dive into one of the techniques, please let me know. You know, I don't do videos all that often, but sometimes it's also due to the fact that I'm not quite sure what to talk about. So if you have any suggestions, I guess it would be super helpful. Yes, thank you very much, and I hope I will see you around. Bye.